Forked Friday, so do not expect too much. We have our special guest, and I'm very excited for this one, Farron Dozier. I hope I'm not swearing at anybody. 24 year, 24 year is a veteran, SFC retired U.S. Army disabled veteran, sharing life after military service, new future and new views, and helping the next generation. Sickle cell trait advocate, veteran suicide awareness, landmark graduate, youth mentorship, radio, TV broadcasting graduate, owner of Oxnard Orcas. I'm pronouncing that right. 10 years internet radio, internet TV host, inspirational read, life of a 5-year-old, perception of my father and grandpa.
Love it. I love it, ladies and gentlemen. Without further ado, Farron Dozier! Oh, much love, Ron. Oh, there we go. Oh, I love it. I love it. Love being thrown your way. All right, my brother. I am so glad you're here. I messaged you saying, hey, my Friday canceled. You go, I got you. And I was like, I literally start texting everybody in the team. And I'm like, guys, we got a Friday guest that's going to blow your mind. And they were all excited. So tell us a little bit more about who you are and how, like, guys, when I say a world changer, he's going to be humble and be like, B, no, it's not like that. Nah, you're doing a lot of amazing things. See, he's and he's going to show us his dance moves. Farron, tell me a little bit more about what you're doing, what you've been up to, and why you are such an amazing human being and my best friend in the world right now.
Man, thank you, Brandon. And Elisa, how you say your name? Ilsa, thank you for allowing me to be a part of your show today. Man, you know I always make time.
I know, brother. You are phenomenal like that.
You know I make time.
So let's dive into, you got your radio show. And I've been a part of it on the one episode and all that. And what I loved is it was so cool because, like, tell us about your radio show and how people can hear it.
So the current show that Brandon's talking about is the Farron Dozier Show. It is music marks a place in time, the soundtrack to life. And the biggest thing about that was before my dad had passed away, we had done a couple of episodes where we picked words and we chose music to match those words. And we would have a conversation about different words. And so with the music part, now that he's not here, I wanted to continue that platform. And so thankfully that I was healed with my relationship with him before he passed, that these songs take me back to these moments in time where I can remember him picking me up in his Volkswagen Bug in 1976. And with I don't have any hair now, but I had this reddish brown afro, and I would stick my head out the window and he'd be like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm letting the air wash my hair. And you know, just so all these different songs from the Brothers Johnson to, you know, Strawberry Letter 23, and just all the music that have stored in my heart reminds me a lot of him. And so I wanted to have a platform where I could share not just my music, but also let people come and talk about their life experience with their music, with the soundtrack to their life. So I love being able to have people come on, give me their soundtrack, and then just create the conversation based off of these songs. I do pick particular songs. I asked a song about your mom, your dad, your childhood, your career, and then your favorite song today, because I want to hear the stages of life. I want to hear the relationships between the parents and that child, because that is so important. I believe that God has shown me yet another vision to return the hearts of the children back to their parents. If you look at society today, you know, a lot of times the children are so upset with their parents, and you could hear it. You could hear, oh, I love my dad, but he gets on my nerve. I love my mom, but she's crazy. You know, for me, it's like, okay, so what is that part right there? Right? What is that crazy? What is that they get on your nerve? And so being able to have these conversations and just being able to listen, right? Listen to what the person says, listen to their emotions, listen to the choice of words. You get to, if you pay attention, you get to hear where that person subconscious mind is coming from, right? And that's really the heart of man, where is where our subconscious mind lives. And so a lot of times the issues of life come out of the mouth because they're inside of that heart. And so maybe if there's something that I could share, or me sharing my testimony of how I went through this, 32, 35 years of healing with my parents, that they could look in their own life and be like, you know what? Maybe my dad did the best he could do. Maybe my mom did the best that they could do with what they had. And maybe it was me, maybe it was my behavior that was in the way of our relationship. And if we could just turn the light on just that, where they get to see another perspective of their parents, man, do you know what that does for a person? For me, it transformed my life, because I had grew up thinking that my dad didn't love me and my mom abandoned me and all these things. So you can imagine what my life, you know, turned out to look like from an experience and from activities. And so understanding that now, being able to articulate it the best that I can, um, it allows me to just have a platform where others can see their greatness through my self-expression. And my self-expression right now is this radio show.
So before Elsa, I'm going to let you have two questions in a row. Don't worry, I promise. I'll mute myself. We know each other, so this is going to be like really a fun interview because we already interrupt each other. But like Farron, when Farron had me on, it was, I remember he said, all right, song about your mom, song about your dad. And he goes, wow, your dad's song is really unique, B. Like, what made you choose Highway to Hell for your dad? And he just starts laughing on air. And I had to explain how I was robbed at gunpoint, and my dad's ringtone was Highway to Hell. And that was me actually being a young, immature man. And I was mad at my dad, and I was using that as like a passive-aggressive thing at the time. Mm-hmm. And I explained that to him. And when my phone gets taken out of my ear by a guy who's on drugs and puts a gun to my head, I'm like, and all I keep hearing is my dad's ringtone because he kept calling and calling. So when I think of Highway to Hell, I think of my dad. And it's such a better way now because my dad actually spoke with the guy when the guy answered the phone. And this guy was so high, he actually told my dad where we were and was like, everything. And the police came in no time. But I had to get that in because that's one of the ones I remember on air. You just roared. You were like, oh, what is
I
this?
was like, what?
I threw you for all three. I remember that. You were like, all of them had a good time with that. But like, I love it. And Farron, I think that's a phenomenal show. I shared your link here, your link tree. I thank you for doing this. If you guys click that, you'll be able to not just find his radio show, you'll find his Facebook, you'll find everything on his link tree. Please go hit that up. I'm going to share it a few more times during the show, but I wanted to get it out early because this man is incredible and a brother, and I love him to death. Ilsa, go ahead, sweetie. I'll shut my face now.
Well, I listened to your podcast and I heard that you had a very volatile relationship with your dad, if I can say that. I at the moment, my parents are both still alive, but we haven't spoken to each other in 2 years, and it was a conscious decision from my side to push them out of my life. How did you get your dad to see what he does hurts you? How do you open that line of communication to a parent if they don't want to listen?
Because it has nothing to do with them. It had nothing to do with my dad. My when I transformed my relationship with my parents, they never changed. It was the commitment that I had to my mom and dad of who I was going to be with them. I could be frustrated and upset when I listened to them, or I could be acknowledgement and gratitude when I listened to them. So I already knew what I was going to get when I'm frustrated and upset and I listened to my dad. Already knew it was going to be maybe a 15 to 2 hour relationship. I'm upset. I'll drop him off at home. And then I'm wondering why I can't spend time with this dude. Like, I didn't know that at the time. Like, I had no idea that it was my behavior. And so when I discovered who I was being with my parents, then I took 100% responsibility for that relationship, right? And so then I figured out what way of being gave me power to be with my parents. And it was acknowledgement, gratitude, and joy and fun. So when my dad would say something, my body, yes, it would still cringe from but I asked the question. We're having a conversation, and I brought up a subject, and he says, "Well, if I was you, I would do this and I would do this." And I'm like, my first reaction is, "You don't know. How you know? You ain't never been married. You ain't never been in the military. You don't know." But what that did was that killed him off. It killed him off as my father, who loves me, who cares for his son. But I never gave him an opportunity to express that on a constant situation. So being acknowledgement. Oh, well, why do you think like that? Dad, thank you. Thank you for recommending that. I appreciate that. Now, why would you say I should do that? Let me hear what your perspective is on that, because maybe I might be missing something. So I would allow him to speak. And guess what? Sometimes he would be like, well, I just want you to be happy, son. I love you. Oh, thanks, Dad. I appreciate you. Thank you, because I love you too. That furthered the conversation. That furthered the relationship. So now I'm not frustrated. We can continue on and having fun, because most of the time we're together, we're having a great time. But it was me bringing my attitude, my upsets, my frustrations to my dad, because I wanted some support. Maybe I wanted some agreement. Maybe I wanted to be right. And he didn't think that I was right. So maybe he went against how I felt about life. So it was that experience. It's the experience. It's not the activities of what they say or what they do. It's the experience that you get to bring to your parents. And again, when I share this with our generation and the next generation behind us, I say, before you criticize your parents, ask questions. Find out what it was like when they grew up. Find out how it was when their parents, when they were kids, and your grandparents, and look at that environment and then that might give you another space to look from where well, no wonder. Well, no wonder they act like that. Well, because look what kind of life that they had, and they're really just trying to protect me and keep me safe because they love me and they don't want whatever happened to them to happen to me. So sometimes that frustration or upset or whatever that is from my parents, we perceive it in upset, when it's really how they're trying to express how they care for you, and maybe they don't have the words to say that. It's like if a mom says, make sure you leave, make sure you take your jacket when you leave, and you're 35, like, man, I'm not cold. But that's your mom saying, hey, I love you, make sure you stay, take care of yourself. But we look at it as upset. Again, with my mom would holler through the house, holler, holler, holler. And so my sister, one day, we were out in Georgia, and my sister said, Mom, why are you hollering? Right. And then so I came back home from that trip, and me and my mom were on the phone. So me and my mom would start off very nice. Hey, Mom, how you doing? Oh, how you doing, son? Oh, everything's cool. I'm like, and then here I go, bring up something in my life that I have a question about. And so she's like, well, I'm going to the Bible. I'm like, no, 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 no. I want to talk to my mom. I don't want minister. I want my mother. No, no, no. I'm going to and so now I'm not, she's not listening to me. So I'm hollering. She hollers. Now we're both hollering. Nobody's listening to each other on the phone. Worst case, she hangs up on me or I hang up on her, and now we're not talking. So this one day, that same thing was happening. I saw it. I stopped. I let her say what she had to say. And then when I had an opportunity to speak, I said, Mom, why do you holler? Why do you holler on the phone? She says, you know what, son? It's because I'm passionate about what I'm talking about, and I want you to hear me. Oh. So at that moment, I transformed hollering into my mother is passionate about what she says when she talks, and her voice goes up different levels. So now when we talk on the phone, if I hear her voice go up, I yield. I give her an opportunity to say it. I listen. That way that I could hear what she wants me to hear, versus me trying to be right in our conversation. So it takes practice. I mean, that's been 10 years of work, but it's recognizing who you be and what you're bringing to that experience of your parents. It's not them, it's you.
I have that same problem, but I'm the one that's hollering usually because I always get when I get excited about something as well, or something that just moves my energy, I just start talking louder, and then everybody's like, "Don't shout at me," and I'm like, "I'm not shouting. This is my inside voice. This is the one you want me to use. You don't want me to use the other one." So I can imagine your mom's frustration when you guys like, why are you hollering? Why are you
Yeah.
hollering? Because when you talk about something that's passionate, it comes from and you can't quiet it down. It's just how. So I feel your mom's frustration with you guys saying that she's hollering
Yeah.
because we all speak on different levels, and I'm a loud person and excited person from the beginning. But I want to know more about your Oxnard Orcas. It's a basketball team. Hey, can you tell us a
Yes.
little bit more about that, and why you're doing that, and how people can maybe get involved if they want to get involved in it?
Okay. So the Oxnard Orcas is an American Basketball Association team for the city of Oxnard. I got involved in that. Basically, there was a basketball ABA team in my city, and when I found him on social media, I wanted to create my sickle cell trait relationship with his organization. And so when I reached out to them, they saw my social media platforms, and they were interested because I have did sports shows, and so I went to TV and Radio Broadcasting Academy and graduated from there. So when he saw my stuff, my pages, he was like, "Hey, I need a media guy. So would you like to be my media guy?" And I'm like, you know what? What does it entail? So we talked about it. He's like, they were launching too, so it was like film the basketball games, interview the players, all the stuff that I was doing anyway. So I'm like, you know what? I'm interested. And so he had owned a few properties, other basketball areas. So he said, "Oh, I own, the Inland Empire. I own the Barstow area. I own the Indio area, and I own Oxnard." And I was like, "Wow, Oxnard?" He's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Oxnard is a beautiful city." I'm like, "That's rich. That's by the water. You got the military, the Navy bases over there." He's like, "Yeah, I think I'm gonna sell it." I'm like, "Why would you sell that? Like, that's beautiful." He's like, "Nah." So 7 months into that relationship, he comes back and says, "Hey, you know what? I'm gonna let some of these properties go. I know you said you like Oxnard. I offered it to a couple other guys, but I want to offer it to you. If you want to buy the area, the territory, you can have it." And so I was like, "All right, let me check." So I had interviewed a guy on my sports show who owned a LA ABA team, but it folded. So I called him and says, "Hey, you know what? Why did you fold your basketball team? I have an opportunity to buy an ABA team. Like, I want to hear what you went through so I could kind of see if I want to take that on." So I listened to him for about an hour and 45 minutes, and he gave me all the pros and cons of his experience. And I was like, "I can handle that. I can handle that. I can handle that. I can handle that." Okay. So I was like, "Thank you for your time." And so I prayed, went to God, and I saw that ABA platform as an opportunity to share not just my conversations to the community, but then a way to bring the community together and see what's going on in the city of Oxnard. And so I purchased the Oxnard Orcas. I have not launched yet because I bought it right in the midst of the pandemic, and everything was shutting down, the gyms and all that. So I own the territory. I have to build it from ground zero. So I had found people who I had met through my sports show to coach. My GM played for the Clippers. Like, so I put people around me. I had guys that wanted to play for me because of my coach was coming to the table. Like, it was this whole big, ramp up of the 2020. And then I went to God because the pandemic was really, it was at its highest in 2020. And so I was like, they were still trying to have a league still. And I was like, you know what? As an owner now, like, I don't want to be responsible for those people, for those basketball players' lives. I know as a basketball player, players want to play, but I said, as an owner now, I don't want to be responsible for COVID and having these guys come play for me and then they're getting sick and taking that home. So I pulled out of 2020 season. They had a short season, and then 2021 came in, and I was ready to get ramped up. And then it's just, that basketball world still hadn't settled down for me. So I chose not to play this year either, because I want my first season to be as decent as possible as a launch. So I opted out of 2021-2022 season, and it really hurts because I know that, like I said, players want to play, but again, being responsible for other people's lives, and COVID has, as you can see, COVID has still not settled down. New variants have came out. So I'm still like, you know what? I don't want that responsibility. I love y'all. I appreciate y'all for wanting to play. But as an owner, I'm
Yeah.
not chasing that. So
Mhm.
they respect that and they understood, and they thank me and all that. Um, so it's the ABA is where Dr. J came from. If you remember the ABA back in the day with the red, white, and blue basketball. So we have the red,
Yep.
white, and blue basketball. We have different rules in the NBA, of course.
What
But
is a
what's
different rule? I have to ask because I was about to say,
so
Farron,
we have a
when I
four
come next time,
we have
I'm
a
playing you in a
4-point
game.
shot. We have a 4-point shot. Yeah, we have a 4-point shot.
How far is that?
When you come across half court, there's like a little hash line.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, where that hash line is, there's a
How
mark
many
on the floor
4-point
that we
plays have
put.
you made?
Man, I ain't made none of those yet.
At least not in a game, right? It's
Not in
like
not in a game. Now I can shoot.
right.
I can shoot now, but not in the ABA. And we can have a celebrity guest play with us. So one of those games, I'm suiting up. I'm just gonna tell. They already know one of those games. If it's a veteran, because I'm gonna create different types of events for the community. So when I have
Yeah.
that veteran game for veterans to come out, I'm playing. I'm already playing. So we'll see
I
what
love that
happens.
you mentioned the veteran side. So
Mhm.
you are a veteran.
Yes.
Can you tell us about because that you have Farron, you have a lot of great things. Like you're really into sickle cell and you're a very strong advocate for it. I'd love for you to be able to tell us about that. But you're also a veteran and you're very into vets issues. So you see me keep dropping down. As a
Yeah.
Browns
Where you
fan, I have
going?
used myself. I'm doing so I made a bet versus the audience that every point the Browns played the last few games, and I'm like, we're gonna win, and I'm a Browns fan, so I just like to beat myself up. We now know why I have bipolar disorder, and it's. But the thing is, I bet them, the audience, if the Browns win, every point the Browns win by, the audience has to do 22 push-ups for veteran suicide awareness.
Mm.
But if the Browns lose, I have to do 22 push-ups. Shut up, Fernando. But like if the Browns lose, I have to do 22 push-ups for every one. So last week they got annihilated. So I had to do 500 push-ups on air, and then we have a Thursday night game.
Wow.
So that's why I keep disappearing, is I'm doing 22 push-ups in between. You're actually on for my last 22 push-ups, which will be in the next like 15 minutes. But because we played yesterday, Ilsa threw it at me. She goes, well, why don't you take the points for the win? And that way, when the Browns lose, everybody else has to do it. And we win by 3 yesterday. I'm like, all right, I'm going to do squats. So I have another set of 22 squats and another set of 22 push-ups. And Brandon will end up being a bodybuilder by the end.
For real. Somebody's
For
reading my
real.
mind.
I'm like, I'm not even trying to do that, but I could see the weight coming off of me now, you know? So I wanted you to talk about the veteran, because you're about veteran suicide, and that's why I made this bet, is to bring attention to this. And I'm not a vet. I just think that that's a huge mental health issue we need to talk about. And then I wanted to talk more about your sickle cell and what you're doing with that, because I guarantee a lot of people don't know what that is. And you bring it in such a great way. You opened my eyes up to it last time we talked. So can you talk to us about that a little bit, please?
So that veteran conversation again is very important to me because I spent 24 years, most of my life in the military. And I don't want to say this. The reason that I'm up to so much in life is because I found my voice, right? And I want people to understand that when you find your voice in conversations, you just never know what you bring to that table. There could be somebody who needs to hear your perspective in that conversation. So I don't have a lot of stuff going on. These are just parts of my life that, whatever hat I put on that day or whatever conversation I get to show up in, I can contribute to. And sometimes I just sit back and listen. But for this veteran piece right here is most important to me because for me, my transition out of the service, was challenging. And it seems that for some veterans, not all, it is a challenging transition from military back into the civilian world. And there's a lot of stories behind that of why that shows up that way. But for me personally, I had lost my identity, and the identity was in my camouflage. So you can imagine, after serving 24 years and going up the ranks from EIOU1 to E7, you know, I had a lot of pride and a lot of, ego and a lot of, just all that in my uniform. And I never recognized that. But when my career came to an end because of my sickle cell trait exertion with rhabdomyolysis, I made that mean my life was over. And so out of the service, I was severe depression, anxiety. I would just, you know, everything that happened to me from that point was because my life is over. Well, my marriage failed because my life is over. My daughters are mad at me because my life is over. My car broke down because my life is over. My dog is sick because my life, like everything, I found evidence to prove that my life was over. And so I was just ready to just drive my 370Z off the freeway or whatever, just to, and it was stupid stuff. Like I would just think like, I wonder if I jump off the roof, would I land on my feet? Just like stupid. And I'm in a hotel, like, like, well, yeah, I wonder if I would land on my feet, like just stupid stuff. But I knew that there was something inside of me that I had some mental toughness, right? I knew I was mentally tough, and my stress relief was basketball. So I did have a chasing hoop dreams growing up to play basketball, played high school and all that, but I chose to work instead of play ball. But I still use basketball as recreation. And again, it was my ultimate stress relief. If I had any type of stress throughout my days, I would go to play, get on the court, shoot some threes, box out, but play some whatever. And when I got off the court, I left it all there, and I was, my mental was free. But because of the sickle cell trait exertion with rhabdo injury, I could no longer physically exercise. So then I had no outlet of my stress. So I began to internalize everything. So there it is. And so at the time, again, I didn't understand that or even know how to say that, what was going on with me. But that was my life. And so some friends of mine introduced me to an education, personal development course. And that really, again, was the piece that not only had me understand about the stories that I made up about myself and my career of being over, but then also where else did I make up stories about my life that might not be true? Because that story about the military wasn't true. They said you're going to get a medical retirement. I made it mean my life was over. And when those two worlds collapsed, they call it the vicious circle. Well, this happens because of this, and this happens because of this, and this happens, and so you just keep getting caught up in that circle. And I had evidence, but in that conversation, I was able to discover that that's not what the military said. I said that. What did they say? They said you're going to get a medical retirement. I made it mean my life is over. Oh, it was the meaning I gave it. So we give meaning to life. You look at me like that. Well, why you look at me like that? Why you say that like that? Like we always looking for meaning about something about us. And to discover that initially was like mind blowing, because then I looked in my life and my past and saw all the other stories that I made up that wasn't true. So when I looked at that and started this path, I could see that, as veterans in my community, that transition out of what's next. Like I've dedicated whatever many years to this country. I've done all this stuff. We're proud. We're all these ways of beings, and then all of a sudden your career is over, and it's like, okay, so then now who am I? And now what do I do? And for some, they go right back to whatever state of mind they were in when they joined the service. If I have people I met that were homeless before they joined the military, great career, get out of the military and go right back to being homeless, because that's where their survival state of mind was, remembering where they were, where they came from. So being able to share my story, share my testimony, to discover my purpose, my passion, my gift, to figure out what my what's next was, I've been able to learn to articulate that and listen to that. And the thing about it is, it's not just veterans. If I take a step back and talk to you about athletes, look at professional athletes when they retire. If you've been playing football since 5 years old, you're a student athlete, and now you may make it from college, from high school to college. You may make it from college to the pros, and you make it to a pro career and retire. What's next? And if they haven't dealt with those life experiences of the parents getting divorced, or the broken girl, the divorce, or the girlfriend that broke their heart, or whatever, you don't deal with that during your life. Now you're sitting at home by yourself, like, okay, what's next? Like, I'm miserable. Like, life is over. And so we're starting to discover that not only athletes and military, but the police officers when they retire. So it's a human being flaw that all of us may experience. So I don't like the fact that it's, labeled veteran suicide, because it desensitizes us as human beings. Like, it's a human flaw. Like, I'm a man. I'm a soldier. That was what I did, but I'm a human. Like, I'm a man, and I have feelings and emotions, and all these things that I have to learn how to deal with, that maybe the military taught me how to suppress. We teach it as objectification. If I objectify you as a other, then I could talk to you and I could treat you however I want. So look how we do that to homeless. Look how we do that to people with, chronic illnesses, or sickle cell. Oh, you got sickle cell, you're a drug seeker. Like, we label people, and that disconnects us from that humanness. And then I could talk to you however I want. So as a veteran, we've learned to objectify another human being, to a terrorist, to a gook, to an Iraqi. But one day that brain's gonna remember, I killed the person. Like, that was a person that wasn't an object. That was a person. So now we have to figure out, how do we deal with that when the veteran realizes, oh shoot, that was a human. And then so there's so many layers to it. But the I'm asking, the sensitivity of it is to don't forget that we're people too, and that we have family members connected to us. So when you see that, and all veterans are not missing limbs, and we're all not, walking. I walk kind of crazy, but we're unique as we show up. And so that veteran suicide is so important, because God allowed me to experience that. And if I can contribute any part of my life experience that could help a veteran interrupt that willingness to die, or the plan, or the distress, if I could interrupt any one of those by sharing my story and listening to where they're at, then that's huge. Because if it's like a fire, if you interrupt one of those 3 elements it takes to create a fire, there's no flame, there's no fire. So what I was able to interrupt is their willingness to live. The sickle cell trait gene that took me out of the service also was a way I found my what's next and became an advocate for it. So that's how I got into sickle cell, because I collapsed from that gene. I was born with it. So when I went to look for, okay, so what is this gene and why do I have it? Then I found a whole nother community. 300 million people have this inherited gene. So now I can be an advocate for that and take a stand and fight and use my military skills to how to combat this inherited gene, so that people become aware of it. And so that's how these conversations all tie in together, because I became the leader of my conversation and not of people.
It's not easy telling your story to people, and because you have to admit where you were wrong and look at your faults and everything,
Yes.
and understand why you went through all these things.
Yes.
Where was the point where you said, okay, I have tried to bury this, to tell my story and not do what was expected from me from a spiritual point of view? Because I think that is where it comes from. Where was the turning point when you said that, let me just do this, and this is what I want to do, create the music and all that to help the people? Where was the point when you went and said, I just have to do this, I can't run away?
So I was actually in a mental health session. I was in a mental health session, and the guy that was my therapist at the Air Force Base went on leave. And so he had asked me, do you want to take a break when I'm on leave, or do you want somebody else? I'm like, no, I was going like every other week. I'm like, no, you need to bring somebody in. So he brought another guy in, Ashley Benjamin, and Ashley Benjamin came in. I went into the office that day, and so Ashley Benjamin, he was a major, brought me to the back and says, "Okay." So he said, "I looked at your chart. So what are you gonna do when you retire?" I said, "Well, I have a idea for a sports brand. I might just make some hats and t-shirts and sit on the dock of the bay and watch the tires roll away and whistle, because that was my retirement song." "Oh, you like that, huh? That's my retirement song." And so he was like, "Let me show you this book that I wrote for student athletes." So he opened up this book that him and his colleague had wrote, and there was two paragraphs of athletes and sickle cell trait exertion with rhabdo and collapsing and dying. And so I'm reading this handbook and I'm crying like, "You know what happened to me?" He's like, "Oh yeah, it happens a lot and it gets misdiagnosed." And he's like, "You could become an advocate." I'm like, "What's an advocate?" He's like, "You could actually you could actually share your story, educate people, and use your sports brand and sell your hats and t-shirts, and that could pay for you to travel." I was like, "What?" So like the cartoon with the light bulb come over the cartoon characters, it was like when he said that, like I immediately knew what I was gonna do. And so instead of going home and worrying about jumping off the roof and driving my car off the freeway, I started looking into sickle cell trait and rhabdo. And so at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning when I couldn't sleep, worried about my life, I started doing research on that inherited gene, and I started finding out. And I found that it's been happening to military soldiers since 1910. Like it had been going on. And so again, being able to fall back into my spiritual walk, I started looking at my purpose. Okay, so then I must have survived this for a reason, right? And I have a voice. And the way that he articulated to me, I was like, I could do that. Like I could see myself speaking and traveling and talking about my experience. And so that was the moment that I discovered that there's something about this gene that I have a voice in, that I could share my story and educate people and bring awareness to. And I still talk to him to this day. He is still my friend, and I thank him for that. And I also thank another veteran, um, Joseph Adams. Joseph Adams and I served together during the war, 04, 05 together. I was a platoon sergeant. He was platoon leader. And we spent intimate times together and never talked about sickle cell trait. I was actually having problems on the deployment because of my, I could barely walk and I was having pains, not knowing that was probably from the heat or whatever was going on with myself. And so 5 years later, 5 years later, I'm leaving one of those mental health appointments, and we pass each other on the base, and he's like, "How you been?" I'm like, "You don't want to know." He's like, "Tell me." I'm like, "Man, I could barely walk. My muscles, my joints. I'm over here leaving these. I got mental health classes now. I got to take. I got to see a therapist and stuff." And I'm like, "I just don't know what's happening." And he says, "You know what? Something like that happened to me where my muscles locked up, but I have sickle cell trait. So I have to drink extra water, take these vitamins." And I'm standing there like, why does that sound familiar? This is 2010. I found out I had sickle cell trait in 1999 and never thought about it again. So when he said that, it triggered in my memory of the physical that I took, my second physical in the Army that I took to transfer to another unit. I'm like, I think I have that. So I go back inside the clinic, say, "Hey, can you give me my physical from 99? They pull it up, print it out. I read it. Sure enough, positive sickle cell trait on the back. And I'm like, oh my. And so I took that to my rheumatologist because I'm diagnosed with arthritis and I could barely walk and all this. So I take that to her, and she does some more blood work. Sure enough, positive sickle cell trait. And she says, "Oh, yeah, this rhabdo and this exertion is a connector." And so when I connected those dots and gave it to the military, that's when the military was like, "Oh, well then hold on, we got to check you out because you might not be able to stay in the service anymore." So all those conversations, all in conversations and sharing information, got me to the point to be in front of you today. So there's power in sharing our stories, and a lot of people or some people think that nobody wants to hear that. Like nobody cares about that. Like that was traumatizing to me. I can't talk about that. Nobody. You better believe that there is somebody that could hear that story, whether if it's molestation, whatever that trauma that you think that nobody cares about. Best believe that you sharing that with someone could help them start their healing process or prevent them from going down that same kind of path and getting some help or support ahead of time. So there is power in sharing. And I believe, that's why these conversations are so important to me, because they're parts of my life that I get to speak to. And it's natural. I don't have to sit here and make up I don't have to generalize these conversations. These are my life experiences, and there are people involved in these different parts of the communication in the community. So you just never know who's listening, and you never know who's listening.
Exactly. So your radio show, you talk about the songs of the playlist of your life, the mom, your dad's song, and then your song.
Yeah.
I was easily able to pick my song. It was funny as hell because for real, I literally listened to the song years before I even remember who the artist's name was.
Right.
Like it was there. And then this artist becomes one of my favorites of all times. But with your song, what is your song for you? Like your Farron song. And then what would your advice be to people for picking a song for themselves? Like just your personal way, how you did it. Like, because that question was easy for me, and the other two were hard. And I just want to know how you went through the thought process for that, because you ask everyone that, and I don't think anybody ever gets to ask you that back.
Well, I've actually played because I have a playlist in my head. But the song that I could put on repeat and play for the rest of my life is Strawberry Letter 23. Strawberry Letter 23 is such an amazing instrumental. The music, I would say, and the words about love. It's about recognizing, that love for another person, and it's kind of like my love song for life. So Strawberry Letter 23 is something that I could just put on repeat and just play over and over. My mom she said that she sang to me Ooh Child by the Five Stair Steps when I was born. When the nurse handed me to her, that song came on the radio. And so her and my dad weren't together, where they were fighting. And so she said when that Ooh Child came on the radio, she was crying because the lyrics to that song is how she felt, right? And so she had told me that. But in 2011, in my second course at Landmark, the advanced course, I had a breakthrough, and I was in the shower getting ready to go back to class that next day, and I had the radio, and Ooh Child came on the radio, and my mind had been so clear I could hear like the voice in my head had silenced from that session the night before, so I could like hear white. That's all I heard was like white noise. So when the song came on, I listened to the words, and I'm like, does my mom know what she was singing to me? So I got in the car driving, and I called my mom, and I'm like, Mom, she's like, why are you calling me so early? I said, I listened to Strawberry Letter 20. I listened to Ooh Child. I said, do you know the words of that song? She's like, yeah, that's why I sang it. And I said, Mom, that song came true. I said, my mind is a little brighter. I'm free, Mom. I said, thank you, Mom. I said, thank you for your prayers and for everything that you've done, because that song, I finally heard the words and it touched my soul. And that song is like number 2 is Ooh Child, because I can't say I remember that, but I could almost see when she describes what happened with that nurse, I could almost visualize me being there. But the words to Ooh Child, things are going to get a little bit easier. Ooh Child, things are going to get brighter. That's my life. That is my life. And that is something that I want other people to experience. Like when you experience that level of peace in your heart, that level of freedom, it's priceless. It's like when you learn how to walk and you got that balance, you've never lost that balance. So imagine discovering your life of all the stuff that you made up that's not true. And there's a moment of, oh my gosh, there's silence and there's peace. I chase that. I chase that. And so the music is
that
all of that.
Sorry, I think my internet is a bit slow. It's a bit choppy here in South Africa.
You good?
The wind, yeah, the wind is blowing, and the wind and the Wi-Fi can't work together. You need to choose one, either the wind or the Wi-Fi. You gotta have both at the same time. Brandon says that you made him pick a song. How does that work to pick a song for your mom and for your dad? Is it the emotions that they bring out of you, or because as I said in the beginning, I have no relationship with my parents. But if I have to do something like that, how do you choose? Because I know my song, my anthem
Mm-hmm.
is Chesney Hawks Chesney Hawks, I am the one and only. And I live with that song because that just makes me feel like I am unique and should just stay exactly the way I am. So that song empowers me. But
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to choosing a song for my mom and my dad, I'm like stuck. I do not know. It's like no music comes to mind. Absolutely nothing.
So I've actually had a couple of guests, that man, and I had one most recent that said my dad wasn't around, and I don't have a song for my dad. And so there's no right or wrong answer. It's not like, some people don't have songs, like they've blocked out whatever those memories are, to stay safe, which is not good or bad or right or wrong. But I would just think about, your childhood, and I'm sure there's some special moments. I'm sure it's not all, and maybe just think about what was going on during that time of that era, and what was playing on the radio, and if there's something that triggers that, you know um for my dad, I have so many, but the one that really sticks out now with my dad was Cats in the Cradle. Because when
Oh,
you listen to
yes.
cats, when you listen to Cats in the Cradle, that is how that broken relationship happens, because the dad talks about him having to work, and then the child is growing up and he's missing those stages, and then the son says, I'm gonna grow up to be just like him. And when he gets to college, you can hear, just give me the keys, dad. Just give me the keys, please. And then when he turns up to be an adult and has his own family, and now he wants to talk to his son, he says, everybody, the baby's sick, and I got work and all that. And nice talking to you, dad. And he hangs up the phone, and it's like, he's like, oh man, he turned out just like me. And so again, in my healing process, and understand relating to the natural breaking communication between child and parent, that song represents that for me, is as like the go-to to show the example of where that child turns out like that parent in their own version of it. Because the more you resist, the more you persist. So the more that I kept saying as a child, I don't want to be like my mom, I don't want to be like my dad, that was in the background of what I focused on, not really knowing. Again, I didn't couldn't tell you that I was a kid. I don't understand that. But the more I resisted, my life, I can tell you, turned out just like my parents in my own version. And when I could see that, I was like, that's what that is. So then I couldn't be mad at them, because again, after I stopped criticizing them, I said, hey, what was going on when I was born? And I had an opportunity at 46 to have my parents sit together. I had no photograph of all three of us. So I said, when you come to town, we're gonna sit down, because I'm tired. I'm tired of what he says, what you say, and what I think. So we're gonna go to dinner, and we're gonna have this conversation, and we're gonna take a picture, because I need a picture of all three of us. And so we did. And my mom came to town, very resistant, but she did it. And my dad told his story about what happened when I was born. My mom told her story. And guess what? They didn't match. They were two different stories.
Yeah.
So I had their stories, and then I had the story I made up about what happened. And so I says, I'm gonna throw all three stories away. And we're gonna start this relationship today from nothing. And who I get to be with y'all is acknowledgement, gratitude, joy, and fun. And they never changed. But I needed to hear, and they needed to
How you
hear that
see.
their story exactly. And they saw that. And my mom was like, that's not true. That's not what happened. And my dad's like, that's what happened. I wanted to be there, and you wasn't let me in the hospital, and blah, blah, blah. And so it was like this whole, but it was freeing, because everybody had an opportunity to listen, not react. Like I set the context. No, you don't get to respond to nothing she says, he says. We get to listen to each person say what happened in their point of view. And we walked away with love, fun. I mean, we walked away connected and it was needed. And then I walked away free because now I could put to rest all those stories and create that relationship at 46. At 46.
I'm telling you, then you think, oh, but they say you get wiser when you get older. So
That's
maybe
true.
that's why it only happened at 46, because it was the only time that you were going to understand why it happened. Because you get epiphanies at the right moment, and it's like, oh, I'm so stupid.
Yeah.
Why
I
not
was
think of that?
39. I was 39 when this whole thing started because in my depression, I was just like I started looking in my heart like I know I'm mentally tough, right? I know I'm mentally tough. So and then at some point you just get tired of having that kind of lifestyle. Like, there's gotta be a better life than this. Like there's gotta be something. And luckily I had people in my life and my mom's prayers and my family's prayers that, started to guide and put those people in place. And I was able to
Yeah.
pay attention and connect and was open to take those classes. Like those classes transformed my life.
Oh, I just love your story. So I'm gonna ask you the last question. That's got
Okay.
nothing to do with anything but the music, because I'm very fond of music. My music is always on. I feel the energy of music. If it resonates with me, I'll put it on repeat. But
Hmm.
there's always this one song that you wish you could unhear. What is the one song that you have heard that you wish you could unhear and never have to listen to again?
Oh my gosh. There was this song that I learned when I was a kid, and I didn't know the words at the time. But when I heard the words as an adult, I was like, that dude was a player. He was naming he was naming all kinds of girls he was dating, and what it was I remembered of it goes, I'm gonna try to find it for you. It goes, hello, open the door up. Guess who's gonna ring your chime? That's right, give me a big hug. You know I'll treat you right. Take a look at me. See, I couldn't look no better. Girl, I'm at my peak, and that's a fact. Takes a part of me. See, I couldn't taste no better. And so he's singing this song, right? But and then it goes to the end, and the guy's like, he's naming all these girls, and he's like got these girls on, and I'm like, um, but you know what? I needed that song. I wish I could unhear it, but I had an abandonment issue with my mom. That was the second major decision I made in my life. The first was 5 with my dad. The second one was 8 with my mom. And that relationship put me in a trajectory of I can't trust women and I can't be vulnerable. And so I became a cheater. I became a liar because I lied to get accepted, right? And I thought that that's how women would only accept me. And so the abandonment part triggered, well, I meet this girl, I like her, everything's going fine, but all of a sudden that gut feeling kicks in and it's like, oh, that's what is that pain? Oh, she's about to leave me. She's going to break up with me. But do I ask, hey, are we okay? No. My emotional reasoning goes, you got to get out of here. So I'll go find somebody else, right? Not even tell her anything. Like I just check out. And I meet somebody else, but now I got 2 girlfriends. But to me, I'm trying to get away or thinking that this one's going to leave me. So she's going to be gone. So, but guess what? She might not leave right away. So now I have 2 girls calling me. So now my friends are like, "Oh, you a player? Oh, you got 2 girlfriends?" I'm like, "No, I ain't no player. What are you talking about? I'm in my mind, I'm trying to survive these relationships, but the perception of my friends is labels. We label folks. Oh, you're a player. You got all these things. You're this, you're that, and I'm like, I'm not. I'm not no player. But that was what my friends saw, and sometimes I would end up with 3 or 4 girlfriends at one time because I've experienced like they're gonna leave me. But did I consider myself a cheater? No. I had no idea that I was running from that gut pain that was connected to my mom at 8 years old. So that song rang a bell because I did have a lot of girlfriends, but it wasn't because I was trying to be a player or I was doing it purposely. I was running from this pain, trying to survive a relationship. And a lot of times when we talk about, why people cheat, I told my mom, I said, Mom, you and I could go on tour and just do a seminar about cheating, why people cheat, because I would be willing to share that story and authentically and talk about why I had my relationships and why they played out the way they did, not because I'm trying to chase girls, but I was running from this pain. Like that pain hurt because it was my mother. And I lived like I was abandoned. I live like I don't trust women 100%. But again, at 50, I'm 51 now. So just last year, I discovered in cognitive behavior
What?
classes. Oh yeah.
You what? 51? You do not look 51.
Are you going to make me do the same joke I did on the H? Are you going to make me do the same joke I did on the H?
Do it.
You know black don't crack.
Do it.
Black don't crack. We know this.
Do it. I gotta find that song. Do it. So just last year at 50 in my cognitive behavior classes at the VA, I took unraveled that final piece of the abandonment with my mother, and I realized that I was a latchkey kid, 1978. I had a key around my neck, come home, don't go outside, don't turn the oven on, don't. I still don't want to cook because she told me that at 8. Like I still don't cook. But one of the main things, it was the pain that I heard her say, I'm leaving you. And I was 8, and I had lived with my grandparents from 2 to 8. So when she had my middle sister, her and my stepfather came to get me to go be a family. But no one thought about the silent traumas that was going to happen from moving me from my friends and my grandparents to go live with them. Nobody thought about it because you don't think about that. Oh, we're going to be a family, go get them and bring them home. But that silent emotional trauma was what triggered that break in communication with my mom, because when she said, when she says I'm leaving you, I was like, oh, why you come and get me? I could have stayed with my grandmother, blah, blah, blah. Like all that fired off in seconds. And I made that decision that I can't trust her because she's going to leave me. And then I got to be responsible because I got this key and I can't lose this key to get in the house. So can you imagine it? And then I walked to school. But we all have these things that happen to us, and they shape us how we view not just ourselves, but our parents. And there was no babysitter in 1978. I was 8. I had to be responsible and walk home because that was the way that life was in 78. She couldn't afford a babysitter to be there and wait for me to get home. So sometimes we grow up too fast and we get mad about that, and then we blame, well, I had to raise my siblings and I was 12 and I was doing all this, and then but that was just how your family had to survive that moment. Yeah. It wasn't their whole life, it was just that episode.
Can I just say, please keep sharing your story because you are inspiring a lot of people out there. So please just keep on doing it. I am so glad that you were on the show, and I can understand why Brandon is crazy about you.
I'm trying to find that song.
So while you find the song, we just want to thank you for being on the show. You are amazing.
Thank you.
How we say goodbye on the show is we give our little nugget of knowledge that we impart on our viewers. Today is Fork It's Friday, because we try not to swear. So you're allowed to say anything that you want to say fork it to, and then just impart our viewers with a nugget of knowledge that they can take away and change their lives. And please don't ever stop sharing your story. It's amazing.
Thank you
so much. I'll go first, and then Brandon, and then you can send us into the weekend because it's the weekend, baby. Whoop, whoop. Guys, this weekend I think everybody needs to go find their song for their life, the one that you will play, the one that will play over and over and over, expresses the way you feel, because music is energy, and music can lift you out of a situation, or a mood that you're in. It's Fork Friday. We're saying Fork Friday to everything, to people breaking our boundaries, people stepping on our toes, moving them out of the way, moving things out of the way that's not for our highest good. And we are just helping each other. Our cards for today, the one is recruit new talent, and the second one is take on a protege. So both these cards fell out together, and they almost mean the same thing. So the one says recruit new talent. It says surround yourself with people of equal or greater ability, aptitude, and experience. Tap into new talent and experience greater growth. Not only will you benefit, but those around you will also prosper. And then the take on a protege, sorry, it's the Afrikaans coming in there. It says mold, motivate, and mentor a young person who exemplifies the interest, attitude, and enthusiasm worthy of your influence. There's always somebody, doesn't need to be younger or older, just somebody that needs to hear what you have experienced. The experiences in our lives shape us, and give us the words to express to somebody that maybe don't know how to deal with it. So I hope you guys have an amazing Friday. It's the weekend, baby, and we see you on Monday.
So, I enjoy life, I laugh, I'm happy, and I look forward to beautiful things. And this community we're building has a lot of beautiful people in here. And then you add people like Farron, who come on last minute, like, because just to help. And he doesn't just bring a message, he comes on and speaks from all his chakras. He spoke from his heart, he spoke from his past, he spoke from his mind, and he set up a whole amazing conversation. He brought us to tears, and he helped us see the best in ourselves. Farron, I want you to know how much I appreciate you, brother, and you are an amazing human being. Don't ever effing change. Don't ever fucking change. So I say that to say, guys, you heard him speaking from his heart today. You heard him blessing you with these amazing words. Do him a favor, go subscribe, go like, go follow, go share, whatever. But what you got to do is take that moment to hear the words he's saying. Let him touch your heart and let it influence you this weekend. Know your song. Know the song that reminds you of your parents, and do your best to spread that love and positivity that's deep down inside all of us. Thank you guys for being here.
What a blessing. I appreciate your time and your opportunity to share my stories and my testimonies. What I want to say is look at life from two perspectives: the experience of life and the activities of life. Most of the time we feel like we got to go somewhere and do something to be happy. You got to go here, or this will make you happy. When you discover that you generate your happiness right where you are in that moment, you get to be happiness. Sometimes we feel like we got to do happiness. I got to go do it, do it, do it. No, I don't believe in Nike. You can't just do it, because what's most important is the human experience. You know, we have a human experience, and we're human beings, not human doings. So when you look from your experiences of life and your activities of life, and you stick a fork in between those and separate them, you'll see and you'll discover that yes, it's not just what you do in life, but it's also who you get to be in life. So be a way that gives you power. You can be frustrated and upset, or you can be calm and you can be at peace. That's what patience. Be patient. Practice being courage. You have courage already. I'm sure if you stick a fork in it, you would discover that you could taste some courage already. but imagine being courageous in every area of your life. So my word to you this weekend is be courageous in life. Thank you.
Farron, thank you, my friend, for real. You saw me try to sneak it in here. I didn't get it fast enough, but taking us out. Can you hear it, buddy?
What is that? No, I can't hear it. Hey, right there.
Guys, have a great weekend. Remember, it's gonna get easier. Love you guys.
Right here. Someday, yeah. Put it together and we'll get it done. Right there. We'll put it together and we'll get it done. Right there.
Bye, guys.
Right there.